Hello everybody and welcome to my 3000 subscriber Q&A special. Finally hit 3000 subs. Feels like it took a while to get there, but thank you to all of you who've recently joined on to make that possible and give me an excuse to actually have some people ask some questions about me. First question comes from Nian. Is there any chance that the monthly anniversary videos you did with Dan will come back? I really miss those. We had so many iconic anniversary films this year too. Yeah, there's a lot of really good movies that have good anniversaries every year. So, I mean, definitely that would have been fun to do. I'm not really sure if and when we're going to be doing those. If we do, it probably won't be for quite some time now. As you can see, my schedule's been a bit busy, and it really took me a couple weeks just to get this video up. So, that's just kind of how things are nowadays. From my old friend, the anime hero. Hey, hero. Congrats, Merlin. Have your feelings towards Dragon Ball, the series, changed with the release of the new Dragon Ball Super material? It's affected me in a negative way. I wonder what he means by that. Uh, well, honestly, I haven't really been super caught up on all the Dragon Ball Super stuff. I watched some of it intermittently, but I'm honestly pretty behind on the tournament power. I just kind of have seen like significant clips of major moments and things like that. Mostly what I've gleaned from just things that I've heard and little bits that I've seen. So I can't really say that my feelings towards Dragon Ball have changed dramatically. Certainly not in a negative way. I've been trying to, get back in it again. For me, as a lot of people on this channel might know, and as Hero knows, Dragon Ball's kind of often been sort of a, kind of a backbone of this channel for me. It was actually some of the first stuff I ever started talking about years ago was Dragon Ball stuff, and it's, near and dear to my heart, and I enjoy a lot of the classic elements of it. I feel like there's still a lot to talk about. We always say it comes back to Dragon Ball. I know that maybe with some of the super stuff, I do feel like I mean, it seemed like there were some squandered things, maybe some stuff that a lot of the same issues that we've had with the anime in the past of things being dragged out too long. I know there was a lot of animation issues people didn't like. It's definitely become the Goku Vegeta show, last that I heard, but that's kind of been the way it's been pretty much since the Buu saga. So that doesn't really surprise me too much. I mean, I know that some of the characters have gotten more moments. The thing I've liked the most about Super that I've seen was I liked a lot of the world building stuff. I thought that they've expanded a little bit more on just some of the gods and things like that, which I thought was cool. I always thought that Dragon Ball has had such an expansive world and really could use even more world building than it had in the past. So I've mostly been fairly positive about what I've seen, but I don't think that Dragon Ball Super has really provided anything that's really topped the classic stuff that we grew up with. The Big Sam Broski. What's your favorite comic book character designs? That's a good question. I think that it might come down to maybe specific costumes and particular eras of certain characters, maybe. I always really liked the Tim Sale design for Batman, like his stuff with Long Halloween, Dark Victory. Kind of going back to the Neil Adams look where Batman had the really like tall ears. I always kind of enjoyed that with kind of the blue and black look. I've always enjoyed that. I've also really liked Spawn's design. I always just thought pretty much anybody with a really cool cape like that's cool. I think there's something about the Spider-Man esque like the eyes that sort of cover up really the actual hero's eyes and that particular like rounded teardrop kind of I don't know shape exactly because I feel like a lot of characters that have that Spider-Man esque design with their mask I've tended to like. Deadpool's another one I can think of. It seems to be a common one people use, but I think Spawn's probably my favorite in terms of just pure design. I've always just thought he looked really cool. So Spawn's probably my favorite design wise. I think that's probably one of his biggest selling points. Just visually, he looks so cool. That cape's awesome. So if a character has a cape, chances are I probably like them more than a character that doesn't have a cape. Mr. L. Now, after your rewatching of FMA 2003, plug for the podcast I did last year, which ending do you prefer a little more? FMA 2003, the series ending, or Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood's ending? Either is fine, no hate. It ain't my favorite ending. Have a good one. Glad you reached 300 subs. I think maybe you meant 3,000. Thank you, Mr. L. Yes, that's a good question. I think my thoughts on it are still pretty much the same. I do think that the 2003 ending of Fullmetal Alchemist kind of has the more biting end to it. It's sort of bittersweet, and there was a great video done by I think it's Lowart. He's done some really good Fullmetal Alchemist videos. Definitely check him out. And he did a really good comparison of both the endings, and he kind of said that each series is sort of doing its own thing, and 2003 is supposed to be more bittersweet, and unfortunately, I think that might necessarily or unnecessarily, perhaps, depending on your point of view, kind of make the ending of the series more difficult to digest, and it might not make you the happiest as a viewer, especially if you're somebody who likes your happy endings, which I do. So I think that the Fullmetal Alchemist 2003 series is definitely the meatier, stronger, I think more thematically heavy, and therefore perhaps richer ending. So I think from a writing perspective, I think it's bolder, it's more complicated. I think it's probably the better written ending overall in terms of just the complexity. But I will admit that from an emotional standpoint for me, and I think other people, it wasn't emotionally satisfying. I think that 2003's ending, especially if we talk about the movie, which is the ending I recently reviewed, yeah, it's a little, it feels a little rushed in that sense. So from a writing standpoint, I don't know, it's a bit of a mixed bag, and it didn't exactly make me feel the best. Although the brothers are united, so you kind of get that happy ending. This is basically just a long-winded way of saying that the Brotherhood ending, while I think that it's not quite as daring, I think it really ties things up better and it just feels better. It's a nice happy ending for everybody. Like Edward definitely loses something, but he doesn't lose as much. So it depends kind of on what you want once again. I will say I think 2003 from a writing standpoint, I don't think it has the best ending. I think that it starts to kind of fall apart a little bit in some ways, whereas I think Brotherhood's always been a bit tighter with its story, even though I don't think it's quite as daring or as interesting in some ways. I do think that narratively the plot has always been so tight because, the manga was, fairly well put together and because I guess the plan was seen ahead of time and maybe the ending was in sight for Arakawa. So I don't know. I would say that Brotherhood makes me feel better. I think that's the nicer ending. I actually do prefer it because I like to see all the characters together and happy. So I like that ending for that, but I also think that 2003 was a bit daring, though maybe not written quite as well all at the end. So that sort of answers your question, I hope. Next, we have Arc Founder. If I was going to pay you on PayPal to review my chapters on Wattpad with each minute counting as $1, would you do it? Yeah, sure. I guess so. I guess it depends though how long your series is, how long your chapters are, because if it's each minute, depending on how much you've written, that could be kind of expensive for you. But yeah, sure. Why not? I'd do that for you. SJM Hadsock. Have you seen any Lupin the Third? Yes, I have seen a little bit. I watched the first couple episodes of the first series years ago, and I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. The best thing about the show that I noticed was that it was pretty well animated for a show from like the late 60s, early 70s. I thought it was very well animated, very fluid, very comical. I also liked the crime aspect to it. It was kind of violent and kind of a bit shocking for a show that was relatively light in tone, but yeah, people were getting shot and there were like car chases, things like that. I only watched about 3 or 4 episodes of it, but I liked it. Just one of those things. I know there's a lot of episodes, and I just didn't put it on my priority to go seek out more. But I liked what I saw. I also watched the Castle of Cagliostro a couple years ago, and from what I understand, that's not like your typical interpretation of the Lupin III character. But I really liked that movie a lot. I think it kind of proves that Miyazaki is just a great filmmaker, even when he's doing something that's not an original creation of his. So yeah, the little bit of Lupin that I have seen, I really liked, but I've only seen a little bit. From Amit, backstory on your name and profile picture? Well, my name actually came from the fact that I was using the moniker for one of my old email addresses as part of my username back in the day, and I just kind of used that for everything and put that on my original channel name. I had a couple little channels before I started this one. It's like Merlino Boss, this and that. I don't know where I came up with like the 301 part, but yeah, Merlino, it was just because I was really into gangster stuff, and I guess as like a teenager, I thought it would be cool to have this guy's name Merlino in my username. These are the things that you think about, as cool when you're like, I don't know, 13, 14 or whatever. So yeah, that was just my email username for years and years. And so I used it for my YouTube channel, and obviously not a lot of people knew what that meant. So sometimes my subscribers commenting on there would just kind of see Merlin in there, and I guess they assumed I like nerdy fantasy stuff and things like that. So they started calling me Merlin. Couple subscribers did that. I can't remember the exact person who did, but somebody did start calling me that, and I think it was just some subscriber that I didn't really know, but they called me Merlin, and then from there it just sort of stuck. I started calling myself Merlin, and then after that I started kind of leaning a little more into the fantasy wizard sort of stuff. Although I don't really focus on too many fantasy things on my channel, I'm actually more of like a sci-fi horror guy. And I feel like really a good number of years at the beginning of the channel, I mostly talked about comic book stuff and anime, though it's really just kind of devolved into like talking about various movies or random stuff that's on my mind, you know. But in terms of the profile picture there, that was actually something my sister made. She's done a couple pieces of art for me in the past to kind of help me with my channel. So yeah, that's the. I think she made that before we went to like this one convention years ago. So I might need to get it updated at some point. But yeah, that was my sister. She's a really good artist, and that was something kind of cute she made for me. That's the example of my wizard persona, which I played with sometimes. And finally, this one comes from Spencer. Do you have a special someone? Yes, as a matter of fact, I do. I have a fiance. She appeared briefly on the channel. Her name was Ula Dax. There's a Star Trek DS9 reference in there. Big Star Trek fan she is. We're planning on getting married in the fall here, so we're planning getting married in October, getting really stressed out planning planning the wedding and stuff like that on top of everything else, which is in addition to, you know, teaching and whatnot, makes it difficult to upload things regularly, but I do try to when I can. So yeah, I'd say that she's my special someone. Hello, Ula. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for sending in the questions. I appreciate you helping me celebrate this landmark of 3,000 subs. It's taken me a while to get here, but I guess we'll slowly march to 4,000. Once again, if you have any suggestions for videos, let me know in the comments. I'll try to get them when I can. If you'd like to check out my Patreon, I have basically requested videos there you can do. If you reach certain tiers, I'll do certain things and whatnot. Any little bit that I can get will help me build the channel, build up equipment, and maybe help me with some movie projects down the line. I've also got my collection of short stories, Monsters in the Dark, that is out, and I'll be promoting that as well later next month. So more about that in the future. All right, everybody. Thank you once again for all your support, and of course, stay magical.